Last week, Reverend Shannon taught us about the power of grounding ourselves in good. Good being a metaphor for God, love, source, spirit. And she gave us some practical tools for how we can remember and activate that good in our lives in the midst of chaos. I heard her in the back of my voice so many times last week, be the good. Be the good, Shell. Be the blessing. And she reminded us that when we are grounded in good, we are no longer at the mercy of the seeming chaos of the world because we are in the flow of life when we're grounded in good. Today, I want to pick up on this idea, and I want us to look at how we can keep our minds and our hearts and our bodies clear so that we are able to choose to be the blessing. So we're able to choose to be the good we were put here to be. So today, we're going to take a walk into the garden of our souls. Why a garden? Because gardens are living metaphors for this spiritual life. They show us the truth about seasons and growth, about patience and maybe that's why I'm not a good gardener. I might have some things to unpack with you today. They teach us about seasons and growth and patience and blooming and pruning, and they also teach us about letting go. Because any gardener can tell you, even this non-gardener can tell you that we can't keep piling things into the soil and expecting them to thrive. Sometimes we have to pull weeds. Sometimes we have to let the soil rest. Sometimes we have to put down our heavy load and just breathe in the garden. I don't know about you, but for me, my experience of life right now feels heavy. My capacity for the news, I have discovered, is now 12 seconds. I give it 12 seconds before I switch to BritBox. And it's not just the things happening outside. It's beloveds who are going through much in their personal lives, and I love them, and it feels heavy. There are things in my own life that feel heavy sometimes. And so this idea that life can feel heavy and burdensome is why I chose the talk title, The Beauty of This Life. Because I needed to be reminded that this life is beautiful, and I needed to be reminded to look for the beauty of this life. So I'm taking you all with me. I hope you're here for it. Thank you. So we're going to tend to our soul gardens this morning, my friends, and we are going to make sure that we have the strength and the courage and the willingness and the capacity to move through this world with love. And we're using the metaphor of the garden because it is one of the clearest mirrors that we have for our soul's journey. If our thoughts are seeds, our soul is the soil, our attention is the sunlight and the water, and what we tend grows. So today I'm going to invite you into an exploration of how to lovingly tend the garden of your soul, especially when life has piled on too much for you to carry. Now, perhaps like me, I've recently started going to the grocery store again. You know, I took a break from that during the COVID, and I did not miss it. I enjoy my online shopper, but I've recently been going to the grocery store again, but now we have our big shopping bags, right? The big heavy ones. And those people put all the things in 4 bags. And you know what? You get home, you look at the car trunk, and you go, I can carry 4 bags. So you get all 4 bags, and then you look at the trunk and you go, I'll come back for you. And you lug your 4 bags of groceries into the house, and all the while, they're biting into your hands. And you start questioning every life choice you've ever made. Yeah, up your arm, been there. I've got this, I can do it in one. That, my friends, is called efficiency mindset, and I have got it in spades. For me, efficiency is like the highest order of heaven. Guess what? Efficiency mindset doesn't work in our spiritual practice. Efficiency mindset doesn't work. The garden of our soul cannot thrive when A, we are weighed down too much, and B, we're just trying to get this done as fast as we can and get to the next thing. Efficiency mindset doesn't work in the garden. This is why we need to practice putting things down when they get too heavy. And I want to be really clear that putting something down doesn't mean that we are abandoning it. Putting something down means that we are simply acknowledging that at this moment, I'm not the best person to nurture this. I'm not the best person to take care of this. I am not the best person to make sure this happens in a healthy way. Putting something down means trusting that Spirit will pick it up. It means trusting that the infinite, that divine love, that universal presence, that source energy will hold what we cannot. That's what putting something down means. And when we carry too much, we often feel limited. When we're holding on to too much, our creativity shrinks because we are in surviving mode. We cannot thrive when we are weighed down. And that's when our spiritual garden starts to get overgrown with the weeds of resentment and fatigue and fear. There's an old teaching story that I love about a gardener who lived on the edge of a small village. And she loved tending her land, planting vegetables and herbs and flowers that brought beauty and nourishment not only to herself, but to everyone in the community around her. She became known as this giver of life because of what she was able to nurture in her garden. Her gardens were celebrated for their beauty, and she loved being able to share from the abundance of her garden. Not just that one big zucchini that you don't know what to do with, but the true abundance of her garden. One spring, though, her neighbors started asking her to take on more and more simple things. Could you watch my child? Could you store my extra seed? Can you help me sharpen my tools? Can you help me plan my garden so it's as productive as yours? And her neighbors started asking her more and more help. And she had a kind heart. And so, of course, she said, yes. Of course I can watch your child. That's easy. Oh, of course I can help you plant your garden. That's easy. And at first she thought she could handle all of it because she was strong and she was capable. But as you can imagine, her own garden started to wither from the lack of her attention. The plants started to droop, weeds crept in, and she realized she hadn't stopped to smell her own roses in weeks. Wow, this story sounds familiar. One day, an elderly woman from the village happened by. She saw the gardener struggling with the weight of a huge pack, barely able to walk. And the old woman said, "Child, why don't you put that down?" And the gardener hesitated. "But these things are important," she said. "People need me." The old woman smiled gently. "Yes, and you need you. If your own garden dies, you won't have anything left to share. Put it down, rest, and when your strength returns, you can choose, this is important, you can choose which burdens to pick up again." So the gardener laid the pack on the ground. She breathed. She felt her shoulders drop. And she had the courage to walk away from the burden. She returned to her own garden, nurturing it with love. And when she had enough abundance once more, she shared with the whole village, not out of exhaustion, but out of overflow. This is abundance. This is divine abundance. This is being in the flow of life. Overflow is when your spiritual garden is so nourished and vibrant that you can give freely and you yourself are never depleted. Overload is when you're giving from an empty well, carrying burdens that block your own sunlight. So our job is to live from the overflow. And that requires tending to our own roots, spiritual practice, joy, community, dare I say, rest. And when we are able to tend to our own roots, we give from abundance instead of exhaustion. And this idea isn't new. So why are we still talking about it? Why does it feel so hard sometimes? It takes real emotional and spiritual maturity to know where your capacity lies and where your holy yes lives. It takes real maturity to be able to say no to the good to make room for the great. It takes real maturity to do that. This brings to mind a time in my life when, this was years and years ago, 2 decades ago. My bestie was going through a pretty nasty divorce. There were small children involved. It was a really difficult situation, and I would spend hours on the phone with her, sometimes her husband, because I loved this family. And it was just a really difficult situation for all of us. And they got through it. I got through it. The kids got through it. We're all thriving. But about 6 months after she was divorced, completely out of the blue, she called me and she goes, without saying, hello, how are you? How are the kids? She literally just says, you can put me down now. I'm okay. And I knew immediately what she was talking about because my arms started shaking and I had to sit down because I realized I had been ineffectively propping her up for months and I was tired. And I didn't even know I was doing it. Thank God she had the grace and the capacity, and she knew me well enough to know I was doing it. And she had the grace to call me and release me from the burden that no one had asked of me. That burden that I had picked up all on my own and placed on my own shoulders. Thank God she had the grace to release me from that burden, or else I would probably still be carrying it at some level, and I would be wondering why I'm so tired. Where did my energy go? Why do I feel a nudge in my soul every time she walks in the door? Thank God she had the capacity and the grace to release me. And as I was thinking about this story this week, I was thinking about how very, very loving and kind and human that was of me, wasn't it? I wanted to be there for my friend. I love my friend as a person who does a lot of work, not only physically and mentally, but spiritually and energetically for people. Of course, I picked up my friend without recognizing it. We do this, and it's okay. It's okay. I think that out of the compassion and the love of our own hearts, we reach out and we hold on to things that don't belong to us. And my God, that's really easy to do right now. It's so easy to see that 12-second clip on the television and pick up the horror and pick up the pain and have nowhere to put it and not even recognize that we're doing it. So we're going to do a practice today to help with that. The poet Rumi once wrote, "Be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop." So I'm going to invite you in this moment, you might want to close your eyes, take a breath, and just for a minute, I'm going to invite you to scan your life, not what's out there. Scan your life, your body, scan your heart, and have the courage to ask yourself if there are burdens you are carrying that really belong to other people. Yeah. And what would it mean for your life, for your relationship? What would it mean for your energy, for your time? What would it mean for your identity if you put them down? Would it help you to put it down if you realize that all you're really doing is releasing it into the heart of divine love? And what would that look like for you? And what would it look like for them? Take a breath. And as you open your eyes, ask yourself this most important question. Am I willing to let it go? Am I willing to let it go? That simple exercise, 2 minutes, what we just did is tending our spiritual garden, our inner life. Because in our inner life, I decide what seeds get planted. I decide what gets nourished. I decide how it will be tended. I decide what my relationship with power looks like. I decide what my relationship with the rest of the world looks like. That inner garden is for me. Your inner garden is for you and you alone. And when you tend it with loving kindness, you are at choice in your life. You are at choice. Now, some of us have been planting tomatoes of joy and zucchini of gratitude. And some of us have also been carrying heavy, heavy rocks. That burden of guilt or fear, resentment, it's heavy. And what we do when we carry those rocks while we're trying to garden is we drop those rocks right onto our little seeds. They can't grow. They can't grow that way. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for you to carry all of that. We can't expect delicate new growth to flourish under the weight of unhealed burdens. And here's the truth. Spirit never designed you to operate that way. You were never meant to do this alone. There is an infinite life, the divine mind, and this is the master gardener, and we are co-creators, and sometimes our part of the co-creation is to let go of what is too heavy so that Spirit can transform it into something new. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. It's one of my favorite quotes from the Tao Te Ching. And it says, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. In any healthy garden, there's pruning. In any healthy garden, you cut away the dead branches to make room for new growth. Spiritually, pruning means releasing the thought patterns, the commitments, the relationships, the habits, and the beliefs that no longer serve your highest good. And you, like me, may have been taught that letting go is selfish, but it is not. In the spiritual garden, letting go is sacred stewardship. Letting go is sacred stewardship because you're protecting the life force energy in you so that it can be fully directed into what you choose to direct it into, the good that you choose to be. It's not abandonment, y'all. It's stewardship. As beloved Unity minister Catherine Ponder said, when you hold on to the old, you are stopping the flow of the new. When you hold on to the old, you're stopping the flow of the new. Right? We might be holding on to old obligations, outdated self-concepts, or fears that were planted decades ago. And if they're too heavy, they're stealing the light from your blooming, and it's time to put them down. I've realized this week in working through this process and preparing for today that letting go isn't weak. Letting go is wisdom. The gardener who insists on pushing a wheelbarrow full of stones every day will never have the energy to care for their garden. And in the same way, when we cling to every heavy burden, we become too tired to nurture joy, to notice the beauty of this life. So what does it look like? What does it look like to put something down? It could look like this. Simply saying no to a request you would have automatically said yes to before. Because that's who they expect me to be. Or because that's who I want to be in the world. Right? There are lots of reasons why we say yes to things that do not serve us. It takes spiritual maturity to say no. N-O is my new yes. Who was I talking about that song with at the practitioner retreat? Karen Drucker. Putting something down can look like handing a project off to someone who is better equipped for it. Right? Let's get our ego out of the side and see what might be best for the project. How about releasing a self-imposed deadline? That's me. You know, I graduated. I say this with chagrin, but I was quite proud of this a few months ago. I turned in every single paper early. You know why? Because there's a 7-year-old in me that needed that gold star from the teacher. Guess how much stress my poor family had to put up with for me to be able to turn in every single paper early. Bless your hearts. Thank you for not leaving me. What if we released those self-imposed deadlines? Maybe we did a short examination of why we impose those deadlines on ourselves. Is this really for my highest and best? Or is this satisfying a 7-year-old self-need, right? What if putting down burdens means forgiving someone? Not because what they did was okay, but because you're not willing to let them live rent-free in your heart any longer. What if we put that burden down? In all of this letting go, it's really important that we stay grounded in the beauty of this life. Here in our spiritual work, I feel like there's an excitement about doing our work that I love. I thrive on that excitement. I love that you show up day after day and week after week to do your own work and to walk your healed self into the world to help make the world a better place. I love that about us. And I feel like sometimes we get caught into a cycle of feeling like there's some more spiritual or more healed place to be that we're like journeying to, and we forget to just be our beautiful selves. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to be. There's no journey that we're taking. We can just show up. And we do that when we stay in the present and stop projecting our good into the future. We can't keep getting so focused on the harvest that we forget to tend the weeds of the summer. And what I came to this week is that the garden isn't just a place of work, it's a place of wonder. The garden is a place of wonder. The smell of lavender on a winter evening, when you're taking the dogs out and they're sniffing at the lavender and you notice the bumblebees, right? When you see that the strawberries have taken over everything, but that means that the strawberry harvest is going to be magnificent, right? All of this is beauty in motion. The garden is beauty in motion, and we have to stop rushing by it to get to something else. When we pause to notice the goodness that's already here, we root ourselves in gratitude. And gratitude is like the fertilizer for the soul garden. So part of letting go, part of tending our soul garden, is making the space to see that what is already there and present is beautiful. That flower that you planted years ago is still blooming. That friendship that you nurtured is still vibrant. That joy and wonder that you first felt when you when you took your first class, when you took Beyond Limits or Foundations, for those of you who were with us in ye olden days, that joy and wonder is still available, and it's right here and right now. Staying grounded in the beauty of this life doesn't mean ignoring life's challenges. It means allowing the beauty to be an anchor, a reminder of what we're working for, a reminder that even in hard seasons, there is still good unfolding. We anchor ourselves in truth and in beauty and in love. So I want to give you a practical action that you can take this week, and I call it the basket release. Although for the purpose of this, I chose not a basket. I chose the most beautiful heart bowl you have ever seen. This is one of our wonderful Tracy Cronin. Where are you? I just saw you, Tracy. Where are you? There you are. This is one of Tracy Cronin's beautiful pieces that we carry in our bookstore, and I love it with all of my heart. Some of my heart is left over for you and the kids. But I love this. And it's perfect for the process that I'm going to teach you. So this is a very simple process, but you're going to catch the power of it. So take something, I think you should take something beautiful, a bowl that you love, or a small basket, but something that can physically hold items, and physically write down on small pieces of paper the things that you've been carrying that feel too heavy. Let's see. Finding faith in apartment next week. My body temple, my health. Right? It's hard to stay grounded in my body temple when the houseless people in DC are so heavy on my heart, right? So you take the things, the burdens that you feel are weighing you down, and you put them in your bowl. And then you take your bowl and you put it somewhere where you can see it, but you don't touch it for 7 days. And every time you see your beautiful Tracy Cronin hand-designed bowl, every time you see it, say out loud, I place this into the hands of the divine. Spirit will hold this for me while I rest and renew. I place this into the hands of the divine. Spirit will hold this for me while I rest and renew. I place this into the hands of the divine. Spirit has got this. And for 7 days, every time you see your beautiful bowl or your basket, Spirit has got this. And then after the end of your 7 days, next Sunday, take a look and prayerfully and consciously decide what you're going to pick back up and what maybe you want to leave in Spirit's hands. Honestly, there's not a lot that I can do about the situation in DC right now. I'm finding my daughter her first apartment. There's not a lot that I can do about what's happening in Washington, D.C. this week. I might not pick that one back up. I might have to leave that in hands that are infinite power, infinite love, and infinite wisdom itself, divinely guiding each and every one of those precious lives. Right? Maybe Spirit can do more than I can alone. And as each of us lets go of what we can't do, we become empowered in what we can do. And that is where our garden thrives and blooms. Here in New Thought, we affirm, we know, we teach that God, Spirit, infinite intelligence is the source of all life. And it's really important that we each remember that I'm not the only gardener tending my garden. This is a co-creative process. I am never alone. There is a divine gardener that knows exactly how to bring forth the most abundant, the most beautiful, the most loving, the most helpful, the most kind garden in my life. Your role and my role is to listen, to co-create, to choose to act in alignment with our highest good and the good of others. The thing to take away today, the invitation this week, is to remember that when you put something down that's too heavy, you're not failing. You're giving the divine gardener room to work. You're saying, Spirit, I trust you to carry what I cannot. The garden of your soul is a sacred place, and it deserves sunlight and fresh water and space to grow. And if there is something that heavy that you have been carrying, some burden or obligation or story, maybe today is the day to put it down. And maybe not forever. Maybe just for now. But the key is trust. Trust that in the hands of the divine, nothing is wasted. Trust that it will be transformed, and so will you. And when you are transformed, you become free to help make this world a better place. Are you ready for a little bit of soul tending this week? Yeah.